All right, so this is kind of a genuine question, but why is getting sober so hard for me? I came across this one this week and I really wanted to talk about it. For me, getting sober was a matter of getting rid of alcohol, which is the worst, it's the worst thing in the world. Obviously, for other people that looks a little different. It could be heroin, cocaine, maybe even just social media addiction. There are all kinds of addictions, but why is it so hard for people to get sober, and what's stopping them from doing that? While this may seem like just a regular question, something that, might be simple to answer, such as the drugs that they're doing, it's not actually that simple. You see, a lot of people that get high lose a lot of their regular day-to-day habits and rituals that make them feel comfortable being in the body that they're in. Most folks like me on said alcohol or drugs get used to putting a mask over themselves and not having to feel anything when they go out to said parties or other things, or just, being on the street grabbing something from Walmart during the day. We don't have to feel those social structures or those social anxieties about being around other people feeling judged. We get to be sort of stuck in here in a dark mask of no emotion, no encounters, all of that kind of thing. Does that make sense? This one was kind of tough for me because I had to really think back. Why was it so hard for me to get sober? And it's not just the addiction itself, wanting to drink every day, wanting to go out and just feel numb. It wasn't just that. So I decided to do a little research to find out what some of the most common fears were when starting to get sober. What were people really like? What was the wall? What's right here? What keeps us from getting sober altogether? Here were some things that I found on Google. I literally looked up the same question and Google gave me a couple of answers. Number one was drinking and using dreams. Addiction seems to haunt us in our sleep, though cravings while we're awake isn't enough. Too many addicts and alcoholics who first get sober, these dreams may come as a surprise. However, using and drinking dreams are a common occurrence for people in early recovery. That may be true. I had quite a few dreams of drinking actually, and every now and again I wake up having one of those dreams and I'm like in a dead sweat because I was drinking in the dream and that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. This was an interesting one. It said major mood swings. Another common occurrence in early sobriety is significant mood swings. A lot of people experience mood swings while they physically and mentally detox from drugs and alcohol. Mood swings are common in early sobriety because many addicts are not used to coping with their emotions as a sober person. Okay, so this is a big one. So like coming off of alcohol, all these emotions are flowing through me, right? I'm starting to feel things I'm not numb to anymore. And yeah, all of a sudden I'm like super irritated, or all of a sudden I'm like super happy and I don't know why. Okay, so the third one I found is definitely a big one. This is like a really big one. Your friendships will change. So sober friends and strong support network of like-minded peers are a cornerstone in staying sober. So that's something that you find once you try to get sober. You try to surround yourself with people that are like-minded like you, that are trying to get sober. But while you change your relationships with alcohol and other drugs, you may also have to change your relationships with friends, family members, and other loved ones. So very true. I had to push people out of my life that I couldn't be around anymore because there were others who were trying to feed me the things that I was really trying to stay away from. And that is a scary thing. I love this one. You might feel pretty awkward. For lack of better terms, you'll probably feel awkward when you first get sober. Many people use drugs and drink to ease their social anxiety or to feel more comfortable in their skin. Feeling uncomfortable or socially anxious at the beginning of recovery and beyond is entirely reasonable. So as it turns out, the longer you spend time in sobriety or in some form of recovery, that is to not use any mind-altering substances, it gets a lot easier to be less awkward around people. Your anxiety sort of dissipates. And I talk a lot about that in a few of these videos. At first, it can be really tough. For example, I spent an entire weekend this weekend with a lot of family that tend to do a lot of drinking. So what is it for me to sit around folks and worry about the alcohol? I handled it all weekend. They were bringing in beer and putting it everywhere, and I was helping them put it in those places. And then while others were drinking, I had a Coke in my hand. I bought some extra Cokes and put them in our room, and I drank those all weekend. And while people were drinking, I just made myself, have a good time by chatting up, having conversations, and enjoying the really funny stories that people were telling as they got a little more drunk. Social anxiety is normal for a lot of people, and feeling comfortable in your own skin can be really tough to do. So take that slowly, because sobriety, remember, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon, and it's going to take a while to get back into those normal social conditionings. So I went to Facebook to go to, sort of my peers to ask them a few questions about sobriety. Corey and I are a big part of the recovery group that's around here, and they gave some really honest answers. They said, learning how to cope with all the emotions we experience on a daily basis was the hardest part for me. Anger being the toughest. I understand that. I was angry, intensely angry, and maybe just irritated all the time when I first got sober. That alcohol was trying to get out of its way, and I was hopping back and forth between being like super happy and super angry. But that gets better over time. One friend of ours gave us like some answers to try and null that pain of trying to get sober. She said, finding other things to fill your time. So that's a big deal. Like you need something to fill your time so that you're not feeling hopeless in the moment. She also said, have something else be your go-to feel better. You know, one of the things that I like to do is like to draw and paint. You know, when I need to fill my time, when I'm feeling bored, I go to a drawing table and I put a pencil to paper. There's nothing like creativity to get some dopamine moving. Corey had a pretty great answer too. She said, I knew I would have to feel my feelings and process the traumas that I encountered in order to get sober and stay sober. I wasn't willing to face those things for a very long time. You know, some people go through a lot of trauma. Whether or not they produce that trauma is, you know, part of their story. You know, and when you have to really face that, maybe that PTSD, or maybe, you know, you've got to reface those people that you might have said some wrong things to, it can be really hard to think about that might be part of your future. But just understand that like the quote I gave in the very last video we made, on the other side of fear is pure bliss. If we can face those challenges with a go-get-em attitude, a lot of great things will happen. All in all, what I can tell you is that most people fear change. You know, and that's whether or not that's fearing getting off of your worst vices, you know, those things you've used for a very long time, trying to get rid of those patterns of behavior is very difficult. Other people fear, you know, say the physical aspects that happen after you get off those substances. You might be in pain depending on how, you know, how you've used those drugs or alcohol, and you might need to seek out some medical help. But don't let fear guide you. You know, don't let fear keep you complacent and stuck in one area. Open up the door, walk out, and enjoy the fresh air, my friend. Getting sober is as much a journey as that damn hallucinogen you've been using. Those psychotropics have been driving you deep into your brain, but what you've forgotten about is the world that's beyond you. You've got to stop using those mind-altering substances, and don't be afraid to do so, because life, when lived, is wonderful. That's all I got tonight, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.